Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, welcome into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you're not subscribed to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube, do that for me really quickly. Hit that subscribe button below. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. I am going to be here every Tuesday and Thursday evening to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. And on today's show, to kick off this week of shows, I want to discuss some significant moves I felt the Crimson Tide have made over the last month during the open part of the recruiting dead period. If you did not know, the recruiting period has turned back into a dead one, so recruits are no longer allowed on campuses to take in universities all over the country. According to the NCAA, they put a dead period back in place on Monday. It is expected to be lifted in late July, early August, so recruits will have an opportunity to return to campuses again in a month or so here. So no need to worry that they're going to put in a 15-month-long recruiting dead period again. So Alabama will have an opportunity to host recruits again in a couple of weeks. But with that dead period in place, I do want to take a look back, like I said, at some significant moves I felt the Crimson Tide made, and I'm going to dive deeper into that later in the show. But I do want to hit you guys with a couple of recruiting updates from last weekend, as Alabama hosted a good number of top recruits in the 2022, 2023, and future recruiting classes. One of those prospects was 2023 four-star defensive back Makari Vickers out of St. John Paul Catholic High School in Tallahassee, Florida. That is the same high school that produced Alabama's true freshman safety and former five-star recruit Terrion Arnold. Vickers got an opportunity to visit Alabama for the second time this summer over the weekend. The first time was a bit rushed because he was on a campus tour. This time he got an opportunity to come back with his mom, his dad, and his personal trainer. They got an opportunity to tour the campus even more. He got an opportunity to camp at the University of Alabama, and he was really impressive. I'm talking about this kid ran a 4.49 in the 40-yard dash. He looked smooth out there, according to Nick Saban, who told him he really liked how smooth he was as a young defensive back. You guys can learn a lot more about Makari Vickers over at touchdownalabama.com. He is definitely a 2023 defensive back to know moving forward for the Crimson Tide. Alabama also hosted a good number of official visitors in the 2022 recruiting class. One of those guys being 2022 offensive line Dane Shore out of Georgia. This is a guy who has taken a couple of official visits during this month. He has had an opportunity to visit campuses like Texas A&M, Oregon, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. He wrapped up his official visits with a visit to the University of Alabama over the weekend. Said it was a great time. Got an opportunity to finally meet a couple of the coaches that he had been in contact with before visiting, including the Tides head coach Nick Saban, of course. Also Alabama's running back coach Robert Gillespie, along with the Tides offensive line coach Doug Marrone. He said he loved the feel he got when he got onto the campus of the University of Alabama. He is set to announce his verbal commitment on July 31st. He feels that Alabama is definitely high in his recruitment at the moment. He's a prospect to pay attention to with that July commitment on the horizon. But as I said at the top of the show, I want to focus today's episode on a couple of guys who I feel Alabama has improved its position with over the last month. And the first guy I want to talk about is four-star defensive end Cyrus Moss of Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. Before Alabama hosted him for an unofficial visit this month, he did not even have the Tide in his top 5. And Alabama was sort of looking like they were on the outside looking in, but it now looks as if Alabama is now a factor again in this recruitment. It looked as if they were going to be a huge factor throughout his recruitment, because when you look at his particular playing style, he fits exactly what Alabama is looking for at that outside linebacker position. An aggressive player, a long player, a guy who can really wreak havoc as an edge rusher, and I always felt that he was going to be one of Alabama's top targets in this 2022 recruiting class. But when he released a top 5 a couple of months before the recruiting dead period that ended on June 1st was lifted. He did not have Alabama in his top 5. He actually took a couple of official visits to schools that were included in that top 5 this month. He took visits to Oregon, he visited Arizona State, and he also visited Notre Dame, but he did get an opportunity to unofficially visit Alabama this month, and he said it was a great time. Got an opportunity to finally get a feel for their program. It was his first time visiting the University of Alabama, although he had to offer for closing in on a year, but with that recruiting dead period in place, he was not able to visit the campus of the University of Alabama, but he did get an opportunity this month. Like I said, he said it was a great opportunity for him to connect with Alabama's coaching staff, including Nick Saban. He said he felt that they were prepared for everything, just looking at what all they had to offer. You guys can learn a lot more about Cyrus Smalls in an interview I did with them over at touchdownalabama.com, but I feel Alabama has put themselves in a decent position to get one of his official visits in the fall. He only took 3 official visits during the month of June, so he does have 2 more left. So I think Alabama has put themselves in a position to possibly get one of those official visits in the fall. It is not hard to tell why Alabama is in a really good position with this next prospect, and that guy is 2022 4-star defensive back Earl Little Jr. out of American Heritage High School in Plantation, Florida. He had an opportunity to spend a couple of days in Tuscaloosa this month on an unofficial visit along with his dad, and both of them had a great time. Of course, I showed that video, I think, on the last episode of The Process, or a couple episodes back, of his dad going on the spin camera, basically the photo booth, the new spin photo booth that Alabama has now on the campus inside Bryant-Denny Stadium for recruits to enjoy during their visits. His dad got an opportunity to use it, he got an opportunity to use it, and they had an overall great time. And Earl Little Jr. came out publicly and said that Alabama was the #1 team in this recruitment. So he told me that he was sold after that visit, putting them in a top position. He said he was confident putting them at #1 heading into a busy fall for him. I don't think a decision is going to come from him anytime soon. He has a couple of official visits lined up in the fall. He plans to be on the University of Alabama during the month of November for an official visit. You have an opportunity to experience a game day atmosphere, and I think Alabama is in a great position as they are the #1 team in his recruitment, and I think that visit this month really solidified Alabama's position. Kenyatta Jackson is the next prospect I want to talk about. Another South Florida guy. The 4-star defensive end visited the University of Alabama at the beginning of this month. This official visit sort of came out of nowhere. I got an opportunity to speak with his dad on a couple of episodes back on The Process. Be sure to check that out on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. And his dad told me that the visit was sort of last minute. He set up the visit himself. He got an opportunity to talk with one of Alabama's coaches, and they set up the visit. And he told Kenyatta Jackson Jr. that he should give Alabama an opportunity because of what the program has accomplished, because they have one of the greatest coaches of all time coaching there. They should give Alabama an opportunity. So both of them took an official visit to the University of Alabama at the beginning of the month. And as Kenyatta Jackson Sr. said in an interview on The Process, he said that things instantly changed the moment that they stepped onto the campus of the University of Alabama and had an opportunity to experience what all the Crimson Tide have to offer. He told me that Kenyatta Jackson Jr. told him that he loved everything about the visit. He actually took another visit to the University of Alabama, so he has been on campus 2 times this month in terms of guys who have visited Alabama this month. So Alabama has definitely improved his position for the 4-star defensive end out of Florida. He also took a couple of different official visits during the month of June, similar to a lot of 2022 prospects. He did visit Oklahoma, he visited Ohio State, and also took an official visit to Florida State. So he has 4 of his official visits out of the way, and Alabama, I think, are in a great position with them. They could possibly get him on campus again during the fall. Now we turn our attention to an in-state prospect who Alabama has made a lot of ground up with over the last couple of weeks or so. I remember talking to him a couple of months, and I said this on The Process a couple of different times here on different shows. Alabama looked to be fading in his recruitment a little bit, and that sounds a little bit crazy because Alabama usually likes to lock in those athletic defensive backs because we know Nick Saban loves to get his defensive backs in each recruiting class. But it looked as if Alabama was sort of fading and Georgia was becoming the favorite for Quincy Wiggins. He told me that Georgia was going to be the first school that he visited once the recruiting dead period was put in place. But over the last couple of weeks, we have seen Alabama make a cautious effort into building a relationship with Quincy. He has had an opportunity to speak with Coach Saban a couple of times, got an opportunity to camp at the University of Alabama. He said it was a great camp. He said they are in constant contact now. The contact has definitely picked up. He thinks they are in a solid position with him at the moment. So I think they have come back alive in this recruitment, and I think that visit to the University of Alabama earlier this month solidified that. Jake Pope was on the campus of the University of Alabama over the weekend. Like I've said about this kid a couple of different times, he's a really athletic, versatile prospect, rated as a 3-star recruit on most recruiting sites. This guy is easily going to be a 4-star recruit by the time this 2022 recruiting cycle is over with. And he's a really talented prospect out of Bruford High School in Bruford, Georgia. He got an opportunity, like I said, to officially visit Alabama over the weekend. Has taken a couple of different official visits before then. He officially visited Ohio State, North Carolina, had an opportunity to visit Notre Dame as well. Took an unofficial visit to the University of Georgia and wrapped up his slate of visits for the month of June with that official visit to Alabama over the weekend. Released a top 5 and included the schools that he visited during the month of June. We look at North Carolina, Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Ohio State. He is set to make a decision. He said the decision is coming soon. He said that when he announced his top 5 on yesterday, had an opportunity to catch up with him for a little bit, and he told me he had an amazing time at the University of Alabama over the weekend. So I feel Alabama is right in the mix. I think that they really like this prospect, and when you look at his highlight film, you can tell why they really like Jake Pope. This is a special kid, a guy who's really athletic, has a nice vertical for a safety, does it all for Bruford High School, plays wide receiver, plays cornerback, and play within the box. A guy who's not afraid to tackle. He does a little bit of everything. He's going to be a great pickup for any one of these 5 schools who pick him up in the coming weeks. I think a decision will come from him in the coming weeks. So he is definitely a prospect to look out for. I think Alabama really likes this kid. We're going to go back into the state of Alabama for this next prospect, and that guy is Antonio Kite, the 4-star athlete out of Anniston High School in Anniston, Alabama. Got an opportunity to visit Alabama on June 2nd, got an opportunity to get on campus pretty soon after the recruiting dead period was lifted, and he told me that it was different to get on the campus of the University of Alabama and actually get a chance to talk with coaches and not just virtually contact them through Zoom or text messages or a phone call. And I feel Alabama is the leader in this recruitment at the moment. I think that visit really put Alabama in a great position, and I will continue to say that they are the leader for the 4-star athlete. I think they are in a wonderful position for him. This is a guy who could announce a commitment at any time, in my opinion. He took a lot of different visits during the month of June, enjoying his recruitment because he did see his recruitment explode after playing 1 year of high school football this past season at Anniston High School. And I will go into the next couple of weeks of his recruitment with Alabama being the leader, in my opinion. We're going to go up to Pennsylvania to talk about this next prospect, the 4-star running back out of Pennsylvania in Nicholas Singleton, who officially visited Alabama over the weekend. Alabama does have verbal commitments from two 2022 running backs in Emmanuel Henderson and Le'Veon Moss, but they could possibly land another if it is the right guy, and I think Nicholas Singleton is one of those prospects I think Alabama will take a commitment from. He got an opportunity to experience the University of Alabama for the first time as a recruit since the Tide offered him. Got an opportunity to spend some time with a lot of Alabama's coaches, including Nick Saban, and he told me that the vibe was great. He said that he loved how down-to-earth Alabama's coaching staff was, and he did have a great time in Tuscaloosa along with his mom and his dad. So I think Alabama is in a very good position with him. He said he is going to announce a commitment possibly in late July or early August. He does not have a exact date at the moment, but he does want to commit before his senior season begins. He took a couple of different official visits during the month of June as well. visited Wisconsin. He also took an official visit to Notre Dame as well. Many feel the Fighting Irish are in a great position with them, and I have no doubt about that. Penn State also hosted him for an official visit during the month of June. So I think Alabama is in a decent position with them. They do have 2 running backs verbally committed. That could be something that Nicholas Singleton weighs before he makes that decision. But I do feel Alabama has put on a great showing in terms of showing him that they want him in Tuscaloosa. We are going to close this episode of the process out by talking about a 4-star defensive lineman out of Louisiana, and Quincy Wiggins, a prospect who has shot up Alabama's recruiting board during the month of June. He actually has been on the campus of the University of Alabama 3 times this summer. I don't think there has been any other prospect who visited Alabama that wasn't committed, like Emmanuel Henderson or Ty Simpson, who took that many visits to Alabama during the month of June, and that says a lot. So I think Alabama is in a great position with this 4-star defensive lineman out of Louisiana. He's a prospect I will pay close attention to. I think this is going to come down to one of those original battles between LSU and Alabama for a Louisiana prospect. But that will do it for this episode of The Process. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you're not subscribed to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube, do that before you leave. Hit that subscribe button below. Also, be sure to leave that like whether you are subscribed or not. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up that subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our in-depth scouting reports on each child committee, each recruiting class, of course, along with all of our subscriber-only stories and content. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device, or to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, to download the Touchdown Alabama app so breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.
Process.